The philosophy behind Internews is that information really empowers people. Amartya Sen, the Nobel Prize-winning economist, once noted that no famines happen in countries where there's a free media and a democratic government. That's because the governments are then accountable to people. Information is something that allows people to take part in their communities and be free citizens. And it's no accident that dictatorships depend on suppressing a free media. Because when people have good information, I think our basic philosophy is that when people have good information, they generally make good decisions. There is what I call information poverty in the world. There's large parts of the world that lack access to quality information or are getting bad information, manipulated propaganda in places like North Korea and other closed societies. What Internews tries to do is to bring light to those places of darkness. And we do this not by delivering information or messages. What we try to do is the equivalent of teaching people how to fish instead of giving them fish, giving them a fishing rod. We are trying to develop the capacity of local media organizations, radio stations in Afghanistan or in refugee camps in Darfur or places like that. We are trying to build up the capacity of those media stations to deliver the best possible information to the people in their communities.
We've worked in over 70 countries so far and have trained over 70,000 people in media skills. We train about 10,000 people every year. We train them both in journalism skills, how to produce news, the nuts and bolts of that, and also how to run a station so that it's financially self-sustainable so they can stay in business. In addition to training, we've done a lot of work supporting and creating radio stations, TV stations, print media, and online media, working always with local partners. For instance, in Afghanistan, we've set up a network of 30 community radio stations around the country, which for the most part are the only radio station that people in that community can hear because it's so remote. And we also work on improving the media sector as a whole. So we have helped set up journalist associations. We've always tried to work with local partners in a country so that we're not starting from scratch and so that we're sure that our programs are culturally appropriate and tailored to the local political and economic situation. And we also try to make sure that after we leave a country that there's something left behind that's sustainable. The stations and the journalists we have worked with have a higher level of skills so that they can continue on their own. And in many cases also that there's a local media development organization that can carry on the mentoring and support work that we've been doing.
So information plays an absolutely critical role in solving every problem that humanity faces, which is quite a challenge for us because we could go into almost any field possible and we have to limit ourselves to what we consider to be the primary problems, which for us has been, the environment, health, poverty, and conflict and war. One of the most difficult projects that we've attempted to do is to set up 3 radio stations along the border in Darfur, where refugees are coming out of Darfur and living in Chad. This is something we discovered in dealing with a lot of emergencies after earthquakes in Pakistan and in Indonesia, or after the tsunami in Aceh. We were able quickly to get on emergency radio broadcast that could tell people where they could go for help, what they should do, what was happening. Introducing information into a society that is information poor can be very dramatic. I was in Logar province in Afghanistan when we dedicated a new radio station, the first radio station they had ever had in that province. Now they're coming out of years of being ruled by the Taliban, and the Taliban would cut off the hands of anyone who listened to the radio or who listened even to music. Picture this scene under a big tent with all these, in the middle of this kind of desert area, in an area that was protected by all these soldiers carrying AK-47 rifles and Kalashnikovs, and the tribal chiefs and the generals were all there, and the imams, and we were dedicating this radio station. And I looked over and I watched a group of like 14-year-old boys, and they were holding up a radio to their ears. And I realized that not only were they listening to the first radio broadcasts that they had ever heard, they were listening to the first music they had ever heard. And I just suddenly in that instant realized the power of what we were doing. And that's happening all over the world, and it's very gratifying when we can do that.
Funding for North Coast Visionaries was provided by a community outreach grant from Frontline World. Funding for the Frontline World Social Entrepreneur Series and educational outreach is provided by the PBS Foundation through a grant from the Skoll Foundation.